Mm. He has a question. I have a question for you. So, so right now most of us, we don't have truly happy minds, and we want to have happy minds, right? And so the question is like, how happy minds? How do we become happy? Like, what is the path to becoming happy? What is the method that will allow us to be happy? This is a question, actually.
Understanding how things work.
Chidangi jodang kandu yume hakoya te di kibucha.
Jitongaso samba chibuyo marezete samba suzu samba chibucha taushi tongrera. Ti chozo ina samba chibucha taushi kari tongyo. Tiwade. Samba chibucha taushi tongrera samba chibumet na kozo ina samba chibucha taushi taulanra kanriyore.
So what is the method though? I mean, what is like, how do you actually create or have, like, what is the method to have happiness? Go ahead, either one. Go ahead.
For example, develop good quality of mind, positive thinking, positive attitude.
Di kunlong yakpo yun di simgi kechu yakpo di yarke jua ki tengi ki simgi bochakire.
Cultivate these things.
Simgi ki kechu yakpo te ti kola ti geya ki
taushi.
I think happy or not, it all determined by our mind. So the method is to tame our mind.
sim dinganso di kibo yume di karila dini dinganso simla dini yore dinganso di sim di dulgore.
Samno dulgore.
Sim di dulgore kinsa simla dini kibo yunere kibo me.
Ne aso namji samba chibu yoatuma jedene samba chibu yomete ngaso jede soeto mombu yongres. Yana su samnyo zachiwa. Samnyo kote.
Samnyo.
Samnyo zana pa aso yinjik debate
samsor.
Samsor. Samnyo zana samsor zana. Oti shik chimbo yosatiso pa karare zana jedene pa samba jerembo samba mechiato. Tindi chayri rikchiyore samba mechiala. Jerembo samba mechiato. Ane tan jiten dena nimbo meba tabu. Susu korchon yimbi tsoa hakozo. Tanda ngaso samba chibu mayola nanji ngaso nyema reri tsoa no la tawdibo. Ti mayimbi ne ta jerembo susu samba chopo cha. 네 직된데라 님보 메바타고
님보 메바타고 님보 튼다 메바타고
튼다 메바타고 가시 로소 챤게 수수수 챤 싱게도아 텐데타 아니 젠도 바 그삼부 도즈도 부차 된게 텐데르 만다 니친도아
민다라니
그런 거죠 말에 생 가서 젠데 초아들 페나 nga choro namja yabuji matena chero samba mekya chaata ena khala jambu chima chona samba mekya ta tindi samba mekya chindo tinga chu chwa le la pores ra tawshi ramanda chutura se yena yo jedene samla suzu tanda jiten dana tsuna jiten de to nyembo meba tindi changke chitone 수수 몸부지 바 로소죠 수수수사 롱소죠.
하고성.
딘데르 몸부지. 디솔라 아니 삼바키 보마 엥가 식침보요라서. 근데 니 말이 나초라 남자야 보마테네 저 컨트롤 자와다. 네 칼라jem 보면나 컨트롤 삼바미치아죠라. 디 맞어 따디봉네 타체토 그래서. 이나요 다 제렘부 삼바미치아죠라. 디 릴라부 타체토고 말했어. 딜 살로몬
Simba Gibo Mutunite. So I had to ask some clarifying questions there. So in our lives, of course, we have lots of emotions that arise, right? Sometimes we're happy, sometimes we're sad, and on a day-to-day basis, this happens a lot, right? We might be happy, we might be sad, and there are also a lot of people that get very sad in this life, right? That whose sadness really they get very sad and they stay very sad, and that they get very depressed and maybe they even commit suicide, right? They might even like kill themselves because of this deep sadness. And it's and we often get sad or unhappy for things like maybe we get some food and it's not so nice or it's not as delicious as we want, or somebody like sort of says something nasty to us and this makes us sad. But really what we want is a happiness that is stable, right? We want a happiness that lasts, that isn't changeable like this. So, how do we convert a lasting happiness?
제렘부 삼바 미키아 뱅카조라. 디솔 몬치샤드 가르청어라잖아. 다 수수 단다 즈부티 수수 메시티 초멘조. 초멘게.
된다요 말이.
된다멘게 따본 도와도. 디솔 가르라잖아. 수수 바점니. 바점 하고라. 이점니. 루코 촌초차. 덴디 전에 내려요. 이점. 빠져잖아. 수수 발로 거쳐져 차네. 수수 좋아하면 봐서 도와줘라. 딘드고네 내려요래서. 나 제름부 삼바께 보면 지텔 님보면 봐. 도와줘라. 티카라 수수 살로드네. 다 수수 처음엔도 수수 마치티 처음엔도 수수 이점네 대하줘라. 이점잖아. 수수 루코 처린도 님보 뭐. 이점네.
So when we look at the people that are really depressed, that have this kind of sadness that is really stable and lasts for a long time, right? What is the cause? Why would someone just become really sad or depressed, that stays, is consistent and constant? Well, the main reason really is that someone feels that their life doesn't have purpose or meaning or use, right? And so based on that, they become very sad and they become sort of discouraged and depressed, right? So it's really this idea of people that don't have a sense of purpose or usefulness in their life, like meaning in their life, maybe is a way to translate that. That's often why people have these really deep, long-lasting sadness.
네 수수 이 점비 가서 대선 나절 제거です.
나게게.
이 점비 거 수수 법안 통부 예사선지.
제거です.
아래. 이 점비 가서
되게 되야 보여요.
뒤 가서 제도 나서요 나절 지지다 유스 믿지 봐만 아토던 대선 된지 몰라라. 수수시버지 트레이닝. 뒤 가서 나절 지야요 말. 이네요 수수 이해점 samkamne dera tika su ngaje che kolas ngaje kar ke kolasena ane su mali ramboche sa chimboyemba ane su mali tha sa chimboyemba ane su le nyang thap sanche so mantri memo bashiyora te to ne ta ke to apes po dingo rom ba de mombo chintoan doang desolatan kosoltate nani burando ye jao goam do susu pache koles.
So when we look at these people that are really depressed, and they have this mind that is really discouraged, kind of really withdrawn and sad. So at that point in time, what what you need to do is develop pride. So I asked a question here, pride. Yeah, so normally when we think of pride, it can create jealousy, anger, these things. But in this situation, you have to generate, if you think your life is meaningless, you become very depressed, you have to generate this kind of pride that's good. And how do you generate that pride? Well, generate that pride by the consciousness of having this human life, right? By really meditating on what we call professional life, this opportunity that we have. So one look at that is to look at the animals and insects and all these beings, right? That all these beings around us, they really have no freedom, no ability to act, to do anything. So you can get that in place, fortunate how important that we have it. So on the basis of that, generate, we would say is pride. It's maybe not the best word in this position, but it's yeah, he didn't say that. Yeah, it's hard. Yeah.
수수 루코 청수 통치 유정
I guess I also said like courage, like you develop pride and you develop sort of courage, like power, strength, mental strength also.
네 수수 예정 텐디체 수수 nga zane sa chembo tsi ane tiki nga nasare nga la dupun thongundu mejimba nga la thonshon chegundu tanga mejimba nga la thonshon chegundu tendi mombo tresona susu kanga chiri yores ina tiso mebache me thonshon chegundu ane susu jinjong mundu sane salu maton ache susu Njongbu Mundu za, Njongbu Mundu za.
Okay.
Njongbu Mundu ten, tendi samaja che, mi tsoma dandare, ngayon dandare is, ra. Mi jimba tsoma la dinga yores, dinga nga chipul tsagoma dama tsoma la dinga yores. Dandare is ane, tendi salu tona, yo susu luko tiato, samba gyobu machagala, pento yores.
Di pento yore, kangisari di mi tsama di dinga yore, mi tsama ki yore, jiba nomare, di kare.
Mi takara zana, mi jimba poncho chegandu, nganjongu mindu, ane nga kipu mindu, tendi tenke richora. Tiso karasalo to korazan, natsu tsoma, mi tsoma dandares. Mi jimba tsola dinga chipa yores. Nga chipa ki dinga nyongde yo mares. Nga susu nga ro ros chinze tsane nga ro dinga nyongde yo tregra mato. Ma jimba dinga nyongde yore. Tindi golo salu mompo tona, susu dinga chonga tona, ya lukoti alu pento yores.
So also when you're in this state and you sort of look around and you think, oh, well, people are like looking down on me, I'm not very smart, I'm not very capable, and you're feeling sort of really sorry for yourself. One way you can sort of get out of this is to just really, understand that there's many different types of people all around the world, but everyone is experiencing suffering, right? I'm not the only one experiencing suffering. Every living being is experiencing suffering, just like I am. And, so this suffering, I'm not sort of special in this way, right? This is just the way that life goes. And so through that sort of understanding that this experience is shared, you can develop some sort of courage and not have so much self-doubt. So we'll start, now we'll start looking at the Lamrim outline here.
Nipa chushebi Nipa chushebalan, shenkigone, chusheba penyo samba. Tomba to chulara chebazena, tomba tane, sanjik tombi chutizolane, tepaton, cuba cheba. Samba to jawa chetabu sheba, yokona sheba to mashebi cheba. Tati chushenke pena, chusotabu nyenkera, tirindravuchina, nashenken.
So we are going to be on page, I think, 13 in the English here. How to teach the teachings, part the teachings, which is 4 sections. So contemplating the benefit of giving the teachings, paying respects to the teacher and the teachings. That also could maybe be translated as sort of being devoted or respecting the teacher and teachings. So what kind of attitude or manner to teach? So like so for Geshe La, that when he's teaching the teachings, how he should teach, and then to whom to teach the teachings and to whom not to teach the teachings. So to who is it appropriate to teach, and to who is it not appropriate to teach to?
Tanda sacha sambat yo konla sheba to ma shebi kebozan nangan robjin chu shen kayena magi shesa docha te tagwa ke chimboras chu shesa te na chulu jemba to no chula gapu menke indina na no chu yabu yera no chu chegore indi shena review maras ne yo pagi shesa te yo kor bobata korola ti chunyon nyendo mewa to tindichen yo otsu chene shena yon review maras
Di tamana di chin yinde me de
nyendo me tindistua menkayena na yo otsu jane to shede na tindu.
So when we look at like sort of to whom to impart the teachings, for example, right? If someone is very doubtful of the teachings or argumentative with the teachings, right? Really good with to listen to the teachings, right? You should teach them. You should teach someone that doesn't have a desire to hear the teachings, right? You shouldn't teach people that don't want to hear the teachings.
네, 주시나 배우가요. 나 민가도 잡아라서 바제라 못하고 주도는 신도 배우지. 주시나 미국을 배우자 미국을 통하도 돼. 이렇게 매비
So when we look at the under A, contemplating the benefit of imparting the teachings, our first sentence, it is extremely beneficial to teach without looking for trivialities such as honor and material gain. Right? So it's really important when we teach not to be doing it for things like money or gifts or respect. Right? If you do it free from that motivation, there's a great benefit. So, and then the next is, so what is the benefit of keeping away? What is the benefit? So the next translation says, this will endow them with wisdom and mindfulness, and delusion can be reduced. I might translate that a little differently, but what essentially you can say is that your memory, your ability to remember the present will increase. Also, your intelligence and wisdom will increase, and the three poisons, right? The afflictions of like attachment, anger, jealousy, these things will decrease if you're teaching with this kind of motivation.
So much
So this we're talking really about the benefits to the teachers, but if the people that are listening have the same motivation, they will also have the same benefits. So you can say that sort of evil spirits or demons will not be able to harm you if you teach with free from these material motivations. So there's a lot of different things. The word "du" and it sort of ghost or Mara or demon, evil spirits. There's lots of types of, but here specifically what we're talking about is a type of non-human spirit that will teach you the Dharma will get angry or jealous and try and hurt you. If you do it this way, they won't be able to hurt you. Do you guys believe there are these evil spirits? Have anyone seen one of these? Yes? Oh, yes. What is that? the whole world. Yeah. War. 막중기 나가디 배 낙배 약분득소.
Don't they?
네, don't do young 막중성성. But he's talking about specifically an actual like evil spirit, not evil.
Like we saw it like visual or energetically.
I had that in the dream, so but I'm not sure. It feels so real.
밀람기 난가 통성. He does mean an actual being that you're seeing. I mean, I don't know how you see it.
No, but energetically, I think we can see it.
Sure.
Like presence of some behavior,
Mm.
or I don't know, it can be some like not physically, but sometimes it can be energetic.
공수직세나디 공수디 눈레대수디 공수기 술라 통기레디 갑툭 통기 말이네 공수기디 슈견나 슈 how would they say that? No 슈클라 데네디 통기레스.
나르지나 돈디 토마뇨디나 돈디 요레즈나 몽부코뇨스.
I've never actually seen one personally, but I've heard lots about them. I've certainly heard about it a lot.
내가 청주 가서 돈디 요레즈네 정신가 요라. 존야ල් 배가부요스.
So when I was a kid, there were people that talked about these evil spirits a lot, and we loved telling these stories. It's sort of like ghost stories. We love telling these stories about these evil spirits.
네 나서 청주 가서 나서 놈이 좀 바테솔 로요 말에. 로요 말에네 세나콜라 로니나 타요 말에 텐디체데. 네 먹gem바테서 돈티게 정셰레.
When we were kids, of course, in Tibet there was no electricity. So when it became night, it was very dark. And so the older people loved to start telling these stories about these evil spirits.
네 청주가 로요 말에 가서 처미버라. 처미번 세나 낙고고. 처미 네 거기 돈디 몸부시라. 네 파타디 스즈 전나디. 셔데라.
수수기 전.
수수박인 처미올라. 점나 몸부셔도.
아, 네네.
틴도 예제 야시 나 또 코퍼레이션 데라 네 돈디 야시
So when we would, at night you would have like a butter lamp, right, that was putting out a little bit of light, in a circle. And at first we'd be sort of in a big circle, and as we told the stories, everybody would sort of look at the darkness and move closer and closer to the light from the butter lamp, moving in.
네 담나 코신 바톤 톤도 템. 돈 셰사라 수즈니엔도라. 네 쳔바톤 fonda sabato 네 쳔바톤 페고. 사스니탄 바. 쳔바톤.
People would really go to the bathroom because if you went to the bathroom, of course you'd be out like so people would be very scared to go to the bathroom right where they were.
단위바데 추던데 추라로체 바스
So when we talk about paying respect to the teacher teachings, right, the important thing here is to understand that anytime anyone is teaching the teachings of the Buddha, right, if you have the book or the teachers and the teachings that you really show respect, right, you pray to, you make supplications, you really venerate, show respect to these objects that represent the teachings.
네, 주시 것은 네, 삼바도 저 개노크도 저라. 간지 버서 수수 주신게 바에서 대시 니출라 내가 대시 주님께라 내바다고 대시라고 그랬어.
And so here are that what kind of attitude and manner to teach. We should really understand that while giving the teachings, the teacher should look at them as the doctor, the healer, the students as sick people, and the Dharma as medicine to help them heal.
또 주는 나도 그 메타고 싶었어. 근데 손지게 바다고 네 또 야구잖아 내가 아무지 추대 단다 주인께 추는 인연세는 수수주변이 영모도 시청하러 이것도 공부
So in sort of metaphor, are you guys hearing us online? Is anybody online? They're hearing us? I think we lost our Wi-Fi for a second. Well, I'm not seeing shitty Wi-Fi for some reason. It's connected to my phone. My phone doesn't usually seems to be working okay. Okay, everyone's hearing, so. Okay. I'll just put my phone by the window, then that usually makes it work pretty well. So what was I saying? Yeah, so if we think about the teacher as the doctor giving medicine, to sick people, and then that medicine helps them heal, right? So in that same way, if you are giving the teachings of the Buddha, right? So if you're giving the teachings of the Buddha to the students, then that allows the students to heal in the sense of being able to reduce or remove these negative emotions, these afflictions from their mind.
네, 단다 출신갈 가르고라자네. 코로라 잠바 가지스 슈닝케도 소요라. 그래서 장치가 고라스. 아니 차토메 바차 고라스. 네, 릴로 포고라스. 릴로도 교와 네 다니 드로바잖아. 수수가 셔버지 나를 요테 침보에서는 출신가게 되는 시아죠라. 아니 젠지 견 레와잖아. 젠 견조자와. 네 출라 비치 제바잖아. 수수그 시바티 산나체네. 젠바도 마셔. 된디자요 말레스.
And so when we think about what kind of attitude that the person should teach with, here in the book we can look at the sentence. So it's having compassion for the followers, one should abandon jealousy, laziness, grief or maybe just like sadness or even discouragement, self-fabrication. No, that should actually be like praising oneself, actually. And then speaking ill of others or criticizing others. And then here in the text it says unwillingness to teach, but it means like withholding teachings. Like you should give what you know of the Dharma freely without any kind of greediness or reluctance.
아니 차토자요 말해라라. 네 차토자 간디지자고요.
So yeah, we should definitely abandon jealousy, right? We really should not have jealousy when we're teaching. So how do we understand jealousy? What is jealousy? This is a question.
We can understand the context like teaching from point of jealousy. like own somebody, like in for example relationship or like possess somebody, but I don't understand the context of how jealousy can be applied to teaching.
Nganso di kapsu di sang chu sung be kapsu nganso di chatok khandis kogiore kongi chatok di kapsu di kari yeme kong hagogiga 말이야.
데 단다 조딘 단다 제또 단다 차도 기아요 말아자데 슈셴켄군이 차도 기아요 말아라라. 제또 차도 자데 가리 간디지하고
Of a person teaching, but his question is really what is jealousy in general.
차도 자데 술 자고레스. 차도 자사데 술레스.
Sula.
그나가 좀 차도 친구도 자라면 차도 자데 가리는 차도 자사 지요라. 차도 자사데 인치면치 매예고레 잘라도 솔 차도 자요레요 말레스.
Think our jealousy necessarily a person, or could we also have jealousy with regard to objects?
I think it's coming from the point missing something or not having enough. So we can be jealous on, for example, somebody has a better position in the job. Also with the person, like somebody belongs to me, and quite often it's coming with insecurity.
Insecurity. How do I try to translate that?
Insecurity, like
It's a good. It's just a word I don't know how to translate exactly into Tibetan.
we are good enough.
Yeah.
We missing something inside. So we want to possess something.
Yeah, you want to possess. The chatok the kanijung serena the chatok the duba ma king na the traction for chigiris there na the mission the color the yongtra temple you na ni kong drabo the kongi yongtra te do yure yang na the sook the gyumsen kare sena the ngatsu simgi nangla the ngagya yomare ngatsu nga yapo yomare some bit of tinjin to shingi keche guye drabo do yu dila deni yongi koso
단다 가서 차도 자데 청구부 잘라대서 가서 메신저에나 차도 자고 말해. 아니 돈주 치동 빠져 롱고 대solon 차도 자고 말해. 아니 미초말로 자고 말해. 가르라제나 차도 자사데 수수근 라와요비미 닌코 미요라 수sun 콜민코 뭐치안 차도도 대sol로 자고 그랬어. 차도 자사데.
So we don't like so what is like to continue this idea of what is the object of a jealousy, right? So we don't really get jealous based on we're not jealous of like tables or normal objects, and we're not really jealous of animals either, right? Really what we're jealous of are the people that are near us, the people that are around us, right? So we get jealous of people that we sort of know or see.
아니 차도 자데요 미무메시 바도 대솔라 자 뇨뇨레스 이는 차도 자사디 카르레즈나 수수도 란냠 란라인케죠라 몬치셔도 텔레자 그레스 페나 수술리 요테 치아도 인도 페 센톰보이나 텔리엔 차 수술마 교아 마부죠라 텔라연 차도 자 뇨뇨레스 차도 자사 몬치셔 수수도 란냠 파지 페난 젠라시바르지나 몬치 젠라시바레 아니 틴 냠도 데데다제 틴 차도치 아니 수수도 펜조 란냐요나 아 텔란 차도치 티 펜조디 미디 디지아렌도나 아니 수sun 차도 레그레스.
So we tend to not get jealous of people we don't know. We tend to get jealous of people that are near us, and particularly people that are sort of like almost equal to us or kind of in the same situation. So for example, you know, if you're classmates, right, and in your classmates and you're sort of equal in the sense of being classmates at the same level, and then one of your classmates you perceive as sort of getting better or something or getting ahead of you in some way, then you might generate jealousy of that person.
페나 나촌다지 나초 틴논 코 조마인 코 미트소 나촌 차도 카를 키레잖아. 양아초를 공 페나 자르미치 따부지라 난라부지나 야 차도 키고 말레스. 내용막이 좁고 냥타지어라. 대서라 차도 제고 말이야. 다 수수도 잔야빈게. 수수 닝커금이. 차도 제사 된지를 제거를.
So for example, when I look at His Holiness, who is so much higher than me, right? I don't get jealous of His Holiness. And I also, if I look at the people that are very poor and destitute, of course, there's no jealousy there. So like for me, for example, the jealousy arises when I look at people that are sort of similar to me or kind of equal to me.
Tanda ngasiat ngaro samsarsares. Ngaro chato ko ale to dendijires.
Can chato
chato yora. Nin chato ko ati tanda siano je lenge yos. Na choson chato zati tanda ngasiano je redoes.
So this is how I understand jealousy and how I think about jealousy. But does this making sense to you? Is this how you think about jealousy? Yeah, so it's possible there's different ways to think about this or understand this, of course.
I think also sometimes we compare ourselves with somebody. We want to be like somebody else. But we are unique. So we compare.
Then so jealousy arises from that comparison?
Yes.
So sometimes the mission tong dorna the tong the dorwa tela dene the chatok latkire.
Mi zembala ndeder pena tombo susu nigala komu jama to meache. Ane chitela komu jato chu jato nyusle ane susun chato legres.
Ini kongi simo keresena. Kongi ngala le di be di chukwa yores. Nge kongla tang dorna chato kegires.
Ten chato. Tito ndresa chiachora. Ndresam. Koton danda chegozane dorne.
Ninsare ini kongi simla masam dor. Yes, it's kind of like that arises from that comparison. You sort of have a sense of competition with another person.
Pena cherola como ja yoache majemba la como jama na chuma tomena pache choron chato chigmares suzu ton ranya suzu le konla yandrosona jenen chato legres.
So like if you look at two people and one has $100 and one has $50, they may not generate jealousy, but if you have two people that were equal and then one of them gains money, that would generate jealousy.
And yo mejembala como ngachuma tome tanda susul como jayora. Ina maumba kola como jare sare tende salujiora. Tila pachen chato lagu mares.
Kongidi como
Pana ngala como jayo cholo como ngachuma to yomara. Tene ngai sambala jima kola chola yo como jalegre zene. Salujin kora. Salujin
So, for example, if I have $100 and you or someone else has like $5, and I think, that person someday might be the same as me and gain $100 or have $100, that perhaps won't generate jealousy in my mind. You need the kungi chua muma the shegi gap so the chato kan
Maringa chushe because on chato karchegre zene ta nga kar nga siati chosole ngali choso yawa yosare tin ra choso lenjo tiwatene chawte ni choso len yaw pujao tindichena chichena ngala chato che ngali koso yawandus nga shijane mato koso ngali ya chazare zene tindikenlo
I asked him just to clarify what in this context, what it meant to be jealous as a teacher. And so in this context, the idea of jealousy is like, if you're teaching the Dharma, right, and if you teach it and people that are listening are really smart and they're asking really good questions, you might be afraid that they're going to become smarter than you or better than you or know more than you, and you sort of become jealous of that, and that affects your teaching.
Ngataba chusyache ditila ngaton dandachi mijimba de yora ne 콜링아 야지 셰고 콜링아 지체고 전에 연 차도 된들레스 바레스.
So yeah, for example, if there's a person sort of next to me who is maybe smarter than me or more knowledgeable than me, when I'm teaching, if they're able to ask questions and explain things better, then I might get jealous of that person for that ability. Do you guys have any further questions about jealousy? No? Okay.
네, 배나 추생계지나 짐발라 라주텐계지 예친 추생가이난다 게게이난다 슐라 피치 제바자지도 티치아요마 티하춘 nen가 첨보시라스 가라 슐라 피치제 수수공 시바데 마 이제는 시에고레스 마도 딜 세나제 텐디체나 르그마레스 티케치마 게게지나 수수공 시바데 라마로파 라마토
So in the text here it says unwillingness to teach, but I think a better translation may be like sort of a reluctance to teach, or like a greediness about teaching, right? So you should teach as well as you know, as well as you can, right? You shouldn't hold anything back, right? So you should always teach everything that you're able to teach and everything that you know, and not be sort of greedy about the teachings, and not be willing to give the teachings to people, right, out of a sense of sort of greediness.
ane joaza chindoa joazati tangachi pana chunyenkaina tangachi nyena kosamare ngachi josamare solu khado chushenkaina tangachi sheshigmudu takozolo pentosamare sane joatia jora tindicha yo mares.
Here we have the term again that's translated as grief, but I think maybe discouragement is a better translation. So what this is like if you're teaching and you think, oh, right, well, they're not going to learn, they're not going to hear me, there's no students here, like no one's listening, like why should I teach, right? That kind of like discouragement, sadness about teaching because you think it's not going to be of benefit to anyone. Kind of what's the point, right? You shouldn't have that kind of sense of discouragement. The Tibetan term is gyowa, which often is like sadness, but this is the explanation that Geshe Lharampa gave in this situation.
Ne dani drobazat tati tsitela goa jaton te susu region manda wong khashigi jarkanda region manda khashi susu shibaji ngali komme tindi shibashena yabutsya ge region yosares. Boyora boyosa kashi region kashila ne susu shebaji su ngali lhajime tindijene ngajenda uze gora tindijene tindishena chushengaji ngone yabu yomares. Nali cheta papazana nali konli yomares na yasho deres cheta papa.
Okay. So the Tibetan term here is dani dokpa, which literally means not praising oneself, right? And so here the important thing, we can also often when we look at this idea, we can think about sort of between cultures and sort of societies, and people think, oh, their culture is the best, their race is the best, or whatever. Like they have that sort of and they praise themselves, because of that. Here, in the context of teaching the Dharma, what we're talking about really is this sort of pride, like thinking, oh, I'm the absolute best, I'm the best teacher, I'm the best yogi, whatever. Like really having this deep pride in yourself, thinking of yourself as being really great. That has to be avoided.
Jiba yokon la she to ma she cheba nies ne chushe sa ti kandere ma she manye sa ti kandere zen cheba chires.
So now we'll move on to what is here, to whom to impart the teachings and whom not to. And this really is about who is appropriate to teach and who is it not appropriate to teach the Dharma to.
Jeto jena matsola ngal chushe ro chi malana 제또 추시아요 말해서 라 요 추시나요 여기 다기 공르시안 디추디 시 조사지라도 조사 시에는 리그레도 리그 말에 딘디 다 쳐봐요래서
적셔도 그래.
그러나
적셔도 켜봐.
그러나 단다 가서에는 저 추시에 시에더라 개요 말해서 얘나 요 라마도 라마 때는 기회신이 때서줘라 딘디에서나 네 단다 기회신이 땡게 라마티기 그게 telangala 추시로시 말하나 추시에는 되고 말해서 네 추시에나요 단다 그 기회신이 그게티게 그게 라마티라 단 the 추시에는 되사지라던 되사지 말해서네 근데 따제도 그래 다다제 하마고는 시에는 되고 말해 단다에는 아주 제동 그 추시엔 사스라서 요 기회신이 때서줘라 딘디자라 아니 제주몽부 총고래서
So when we look at generally speaking, of course, if we look at it generally, you should not teach unless asked to teach. So you should not teach unless asked. And even if you are asked, you have to be able to discern if the person is someone who's appropriate to teach to or not. And if it's not appropriate or you can't discern that, then you shouldn't teach. The king gewishing gikola ngaso chedang dang gewishing gikola the can give a very
단단드 나선르제나 나 나르르제나 저서 라마야 대게요마 저선르제나 나 게신이 라마야 대게요마레스 아서 제데네 제토 그 고토퍼네 게샤스마 요 게신이잖아 페나 라만다부테 게신이 때서 친다도 참아 좀 초마도 저래서 짐바 매제네 가서 노출을 시야지오라 어텔 게신이 때서 텔라 아니 제주도서 아주 개침보랬어. 제토는 가서 주시알아. 어때서? 개침보시 말했어.
So right now we're in a more informal setting, right? So I am not like your lama. This isn't a really sort of formal teaching relationship right now. So that right now, of course, it's not so important that we follow all of these rules about who to teach you, who not to teach to. But in the situation when someone is the Gewi Shinin we translate as spiritual friend, but I think you can translate it as like just the lama, like in an actual formal teaching relationship with a guru or a lama. Then in that situation, it's really important that you understand these requirements and that these sort of requirements about who to teach to and who not to teach to are fulfilled.
저도 Gewi Shinin 때서자데 디 월마 몸부 레그레스. 나 신이 때서자데 제또 단당가서 그 나초솔을 시아노제도 초조니아노제 말했어. 될라요 제주 몸부 총고래서.
그래서 제주 몸부 총고.
단당 나이는 고졸을 시아 고조니아데요라. 디타부 말했어. 게신이 때자데 다월 게신이 제주 몸부 레그레서.
Yeah, so when we will talk about we will talk later about the sort of the qualities of a fully qualified spiritual teacher and what that means, right? And so there will be some sort of a definition in these qualities of what is the sort of spiritual friend or a qualified spiritual teacher. And so when we look at these, right, maybe I don't have all of these qualities. So we're not necessarily right here following these strict guidelines, but this is really about having a fully qualified spiritual teacher or a lama, what we're reading here, these requirements.
ane ta sambad kar jedo tomo jawi chaza ane chushe chati kar jegorezana ane sheba to nyemba le chushenke ge shewa ge chaton chunyenke ge nye ne gewa jora te somate ne ka ton thate ki mones domba tapu ngo chawaza ta ngo cha tres chushe chati yora.
So in here we now section 3, which is common concluding practices, where it says virtues acquired through imparting the teachings and listening to them should be dedicated earnestly to the temporary and ultimate object of aspirations. Right. So this is about dedication. So that whatever these qualities that we have generated through these teachings, it's really important that we dedicate them.
Ta jeba lamjitsa damba nguji lama cheta trawa rambala niza jino ta lamjitsa shinyi tensa tenne luchota juwi ramba woza ate lamjitsa wat kar gewishinyi kandite gorazane te tonto ane gewishinyi te chati ane susu saulu kandu luk kandi jongo rezani sajani legres.
So then we go down to the next section, which is B1, how to rely on the teacher as the root of the path, right? So the how do we understand that the teacher this is the root of the path, or the root of the stages of the path? And this has two sections, sort of a little elaborated explanation to generate certainty, and a brief summary of how to retain that practice. And so the first section will be sort of what are the qualities of a spiritual teacher. And the section there will be, once we have a spiritual teacher, how do we sort of maintain that relationship? How do we guard that relationship?
ane tanda kausu pabang ngasundabo ngamashe chutunya tabolo teso chutone kechimbo mares. Yenayo ta choroso ne lama ten gewe shinyi ten ne nochu tsade jone susu shinyi tesa jiyona ne teso gutsagwa haje kechimbo res.
So right now, of course, we're having more of an informal session here, right? So when you're thinking about me, this kind of relationship isn't so important, right? We're not having this kind of relationship described here. But when you take teachings from a lama or a guru, or you have a lama or a guru, right? Then that formal relationship, this what we'll discuss here in the next section about that relationship is very important.
Tanda ngaso yama sheate soma jolen raboto chetobe ngaso tendike chechires. Auto gewe shinyi tetsa nama sheate choto yata gewe shinyi tetsa tendike chechires.
Yeah, so what we're having right here really is sort of an informal conversation, a discussion, right? So we're not really don't see this in our relationship right now as it being sort of the spiritual teacher and the students in the way that we're talking about here in this book.
ane teoga sache tombo la juiza chindo tenja gewe shinyi tsenye to tenja lamin tsenye di chata tembi phayo mate be nyimu ta gewe shinyi ngone chi tenke chi yana tana suzu lama tena da suzu getsa de kandi chi tena ta gewe shinyi tela tsenye chomoso tombo ta shores ta cheche ne gewe shinyi tela tsenye te chonsona ne gewe shinyi ten ne gegete ko lama tela tino shiano je lamin tsenye se chindo 어디 계주 총도 뭐 좋다. 네 계주 총소나 아니 라라 건자 제초です. 라라전 라마도 라마.
Lama mingtakti.
티 라티. 이제는 차그랬어.
So here in the next section, where a little elaboration to generate certainty, which basically, what does the Tibetan say for that? Ngepe gebe chu ju se ju te shepa.
티수 소마 먹고 하지. Teola.
The
Tombola.
Yeah, I mean it's basically like a slightly elaborate explanation to help you understand what this is about. Is the book translation is a little strange, but but it doesn't matter. It has 6 sections, right? The qualities of a spiritual teacher, the qualities of the disciples, how to rely on the teacher, the benefits of relying on the spiritual teacher, the disadvantages of not relying on the teacher, and the summary of that. And so what's important in this really is that when you're looking at a spiritual teacher or a lama in this more formal relationship, right, we'll study this list of qualities that they should have, right? And so the first thing is to look at this prospective teacher and decide, do they fulfill these requirements, right? Do they have these qualities that you want them to have? And then once you decide, oh, they do, great. And then at that point, then you can rely on them. You can sort of take them as your teacher once you've sort of examined them and seen if they have those teachers. And then once you do that, then you follow this relationship guideline.
아니 tenja gewe shinyi ke tsenye to tenja lamen tsenye se ajindo. Te ngaso tenjimal 시야에서 네 단다티 버리 가마 가진도 네 저도 지원자 전에 간대요 수속 상사까리요나 시나 그래서
also something I see that so in the next section what we'll talk about is the qualities of the spiritual teacher and the qualities of the disciples. And so something Geshe Lharampa said earlier too is you also have to look at yourself and see if you have these qualities, right? It's important to examine yourself. Do you have the qualities of a disciple? as well. So anyway, we'll talk about that in the next time. We have a few minutes left for questions. So, questions about this text or just any general questions, whatever you're thinking of are totally welcome.
What's the reason why Lama shouldn't teach who is not asking for teaching?
ngaso kewe shinin sulwaman tepna karechini di sung chukomare.
때 단다 손지가 손 가려라자 마소와 추셰바 마차오잖아. 근데 놓치지요래. 데노 가라잖아. 나라 추셰로 치잖아. 야 마지바틀라 네마 추시아요 말레스. 티 가라라잖아. 진짜 수티 슐라 마키 바차도 슐라 렌토메 바차. 근데 있어서 네 마소바 추셰바 마차잖아. 손지가 손이래서.
So this is, it is said in the sutras, the Buddha actually said, do not teach the Dharma unless it is requested. The chief reason really is that it must be valued, right? It must be esteemed, or must be precious. And so if it's not requested, people won't value it. They won't hold it as precious.
요 추시라치 말라네 내가 졸 추시셔고자 다스 바셰데나 제똥 전에 드리고 말했어.
Yeah. So if you don't say please teach me the Dharma, then I shouldn't teach, right? But and if I just sort of teach, if I go around telling the Dharma to everybody like that, with just sort of wherever, that's not appropriate.
Maybe it's because if you don't request, then even you get it teaching, you don't cherish it. And I said you don't cherish, right?
Yeah.
But then you don't really put it in your mind, and then you don't practice, and that won't help.
Yeah. The so madapna the chute the sungrom nang malapna the munishini the kingi sim kinangla lap kimare yangna the nyam chege mare. Sina the gechum pumare samotangi.
때 마르페나 추자티 콜 추자티 렌토치메나 코텔 토냐첸 카토 종케시라고 말해서 코텔 렌토요 비차네 시도네
이 렌탕 교배 차네 디 텔라데네 디 냐만 체기레 디 심결기 말해.
페나타 추 페나 나수 마소버 추시아요 말해서 손지가 손요라 디카레자나 페나 나라 추셰로 치자 나 페나 초선다우치나 뭐 소막라고 말했어. 지도 페나 난다우치게 촐라 추셰로 치자 아니 추송고에 자라 아니 럽치게 제산은 되라네 마젬바 카체 이오난 되게래서 머리레니 제고 말했어. 지도요 추셰로 치 전에 말라나 나 추셰게 전에 파 저다체네 근데 요 말했어. 단다 추지잔셀라 마키파즈네 니트리 치지요라 추지잔셀라 마키파즈 슐라 마키파 찬도레스 페나 난다버치네 스코고 추시아 말라네 여기 추도까지 랑과도 선는데 지세데네 자부주도 렘부주요 말에 딘데고 말 처음 말레스 이제면치 추시아로 시즌에 다 차데 jon티선어 텐송요.
So yeah, so I mean, it's sort of just reiterating what we said is that that it's really important that you only teach to people that are asked, right? It wouldn't be appropriate for me just to teach wherever. Certainly, I couldn't sort of go out into the street and just randomly, tell people about the Dharma, right? Like that wouldn't be helpful at all. He what did he say? He did also say, based on the devotion, of course, you really sort of understand and value the teachings, which I think is basically what you said, but when I tried to explain it, I don't think I communicated it quite right, but I think he basically agreed with you in the beginning. Yeah, if you don't ask for it, you don't cherish it, you don't value it, you don't respect it.
제고친 소대요라 제고친 소요나 아니 컨디치라잖아 컨디틀이 앞에 컨디 여러 치잖아 야 군데 렘보 군데 사카타카지 구 마운가르 단다노
Statue? Oh, yeah. Kundra.
Kundra. Kundra. Te. Pena. Chur ngasonde dende yaki kundra dende majene. Yakin roa dena mital roa chi umares. Tinoje dende jana ju. Nso kundra dende je ne choro ya pe ya ju da jane. Tindi chena kundra tal roa chi yores. Tinoje.
Kundra tal chu.
Rambo
Kundra tal chu.
Mare kundra jana tapena chu sheroshi mal ne chu shena chu lo maki pa chande umare lara. Tinoje pena zegu chung sora. Zegu hagora. Zegu sote kundra ke tong do chi kokota ji do. Motisol tani chor kundra yorochi laune ya soma dende jene lere mato. Tindi dende chone majene ya shomala ne mijin do ya ka changu dena. Ndiyo umare la tua yo umare. Tito chibar pitun je. Hakose.
Nati hakonde takonde. Kundra gidi.
Kundra mareta.
Kundun.
Ndrimbu. Pena chera jedi la sho. Nitba de.
De. Tumbo.
Ndrimbu. Eki.
Tumbo Geshe Sati kutum.
Kundra. Ndrimbu. Eki nzegun sora zila kona. Kokoshi tahadoa. Ndrimbu tisola. Ti choni mea. Ko michileni yaki. Kachangu dena. Drigu mares. Ti noje. Chu ngasusan ndrimbu sho. Yaki desayo. Tashe cherochi. Ti noje res. Pitenjo.
So there's an example, like if we have like a big event at the Tsuklakang or something, right? We have these big official events, and you have these important guests that arrive, right? So the important guests arrive, and they get, the special marker. They're given an important seat, right? Everyone sort of shows them kind of respect, right? So it's sort of like that, like it's sort of showing respect to these things. It's a little bit like that, yes. Like that.
Yagi sholani ndunani tuandu jora. Yagi chonda wachile ndumbo yorochi yagi desa yolara. Ane chorunduna tua yorera. Mata sho chone mala chorunduni yagi kachangu dena ndiumara. Tinaje chuti nala sheroshi ane shen tua yora mata. Sheroshi chone mala ni sheshana.
So like if we didn't invite someone and they came in and just like sat down in like an important chair or something, that would be weird, right? So like it's like you've invited them, you've shown them respect and given this important place, right? So it's like that with the teachings, right? If you request the teachings, it's sort of like they've become a guest that you respect. So not sure I got 100% of that.
Chutila chiwa jobazana. Chutila sa chimbo tsato. Chutila joa yubi chani tindishare.
Joa yubi.
Zawa chimbutsi. Chudi zawa chimbutsi. Zawa chimbutsi. Di chane ya sheroshi malona ma shea yo mares. Kiyong chane. Ina mishchik chu sheroshi lona na shena dila nyenke katse lena ndugres.
Nyenke katse lena.
Pena nganda buchina ale choku chu sheroshi lora. Na chu shena choro ngala chu sheroshi lotsate. Tinyoto mejemba ja toncha katse lena.
Okay, so also like if one person makes a real request to teach and then other people around them hear that, that's okay, right? As long as there is a request to teach sort of that has been made. So for example, like His Holiness when he gives the Kala Chakra initiations or teachings. So for example, if there is a teacher or somebody who makes a real request for this teaching and then whoever else comes, it's totally okay because there is this request. Yes, but however, if there's no one that makes the request, for example, for this empowerment of the Kala Chakra, then His Holiness can't just one day think I'm going to give the, he needs he's supposed to have a request. Was that I did that? How was that response? Maybe your doubt wasn't totally clear.
가리나 제대 다다 그렇지.
Anybody else? We have maybe it's time's sort of up, but we maybe have time for one more question or something. Anybody? No. Okay.
네 사라.
So, all right, we'll stop there. Thank you, everyone online.
So,
Thank you.